Good morning to everybody. As you may have noticed, these sessions will be recorded. Is there anyone that has a problem with this? You agree with this recording? Okay, because probably will be published. Okay. Thank you. Vicky, can we start?
Yes.
May I also share my screen to start the presentation? Okay. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
So thank you everyone for joining this workshop. My name is Apostolos Axenopoulos. I'm from Center for Research and Technology, LAS, and together with IBEC, we are hosting this workshop, the shared workspace between humans and robots that is done in the context of Living Machines International Conference. So a few words before we start our sessions. So the topic of this workshop is basically motivated by the emerging state of human-robot collaboration in industrial environments. So where the replacement of traditional industrial robots have been done with collaborative robots or cobots. So this, the reason for this is that we can in this way combine the endurance and precision of the robot with the dexterity and problem-solving ability of humans. The good thing is that in this way, the cobots can basically coexist with humans in this environment without the need to be kept behind fences, as it was the case previously with the traditional robots. Here there are several tasks that are supported in this workshop and will be discussed. Is the automated parts assembly and disassembly, inspection and co-manipulation. These tasks are usually good examples to have where the human-robot collaboration can be exploited. So the topic of this workshop is, of course, shared workspace between humans and robots. More specifically, we are looking for novel approaches to facilitate the collaboration between robots and humans for solving challenging tasks in a shared workspace. So the motivation was actually to, first of all, to leverage the results of the EU-funded project HR Recycler, that we at CERT and IBEC are partners. Actually, CERT is coordinating this project, and the aim of HR Recycler is to introduce the use of industrial collaborative robots for disassembling waste electrical and electronic equipment. But we also welcome activities and research that has been performed by other similar European projects, as you may see in the next, in the second session today. So more or less the topics of the workshop is the smart mechatronics, computer vision in robot-assisted tasks, human-robot collaboration, and safety in the workspace. Okay, the organizers of this workshop is myself from CERT and also Dimitrios Giakoumis, a colleague from this Center of Research and Technology in LAS, Eva Salgado from Technalia, Vicky Vulucci from IBEC, the Institute of Bioengineering of Catalonia, as well as Anna Moura from IBEC as well. A short agenda of this workshop today. The first session includes that has been performed in the context of HR Recycler project, human-robot collaboration recycling plant, starting a presentation for fine-grained object detection for disassembly of waste electrical and electronic engineering for myself, The second presentation will be done from Sebastian Kertz from the Technical University of Munich, where the topic is Advanced Robotic Skills for Recycling Processes. And the third presentation for this first session is from Albert Tissot from Sadako Technologies, with the topic Applications of Computer Vision and AI in the field of electronic waste management and smart recycling process. Then after a short break, we will move to the second session of this workshop today, human-robot collaboration in the workspace, starting with the presentation from Nestor Garcia Hidalgo, which is responsible for the collaborative robotics research line, and it's a presentation from ShareWork project, manufacturing environment tracking for effective human-robot interaction. The next presentation is from Fotis Dimeas from Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. So in the context of the Collaborate project, the topic will be human-robot collaboration in assembly tasks, the project Collaborate. And the third presentation will be done by Matteo Zanaroli, which represents Rossini project. So the topic will be Project Rossini at a glance. Then we will have a short break, and then we move to the final session where open discussion to open issues and further research directions will be done. So this is actually the introduction of our workshop, and if we are okay, the organizers, we can move to our next presentation.
Yes, thank you very much, Apostolos. You can start.
Okay, so I can move with my screen share to the next presentation, which is the first of this first session today. Okay, everyone can hear me and see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, as we said, the topic of this presentation will be fine-grained object detection for robot-assisted WEE disassembly. And this has been a part of research performed under the HR Recycler project. So, a short outline of this presentation will be the overview of HR Recycler project for basically for those that are not familiar. I think that most of you are, but for completeness, we will have a few slides referring to HR Recycler. So how computer vision is introduced in robot-assisted tasks. And then we will move basically to our work, which includes the creation, the construction of a dataset for training our methods, the object detection methodology that we follow, and a proposed approach, and then some initial results of our research that will be relevant to the disassembly of waste electrical and electronic engineering equipment. So the main goal of HR Recycler project is to target the development of a human robot recycling plant, a hybrid human robot recycling plant for the electrical and electronic equipment that operates in indoor environment. So our aim here is to replace expensive, hazardous, and time-consuming tasks which are done manually at this time of disassembling WEE materials with corresponding automatic robotic-based procedures. We will see that this can be relevant to different parts of categorization of devices, disassembling, as well as sorting these components. The output of the system will be the sorted components, will be electronic device, so it's printed circuit boards, coils, capacitors, etc. Concentrated fractions with significant and expensive materials, and also mixed fractions that have low concentration in variable materials that can be sent to other facilities for further recycling processing. Here's a short diagram which briefly depicts the process in a WEE recycling plant. So for the input here will be different devices that are given to the factory in piles and big containers and packages. And then we have the first step of device classification. In this case, in this step, the human worker will pick the device from the piles and divide into the different workbench depending on the type of the device. So here, as you can see, this process can be done collaboratively with the human and the robot. The next step is the device disassembly step, which is actually the most challenging one, which includes taking off different parts, disassembling the device, and taking off all these significant components to be used in the further processing. So again, this process is currently done by humans, but we foresee a big to do it collaboratively between humans and robots in order to extract different parts from each type of device. In the final stage of component sorting, we need to proceed and move the extracted parts that have done the disassembly part to shredding machines or other parts of concentrated fraction selection, which is also something to move to the next parts of component sorting. Among these parts, we will basically focus on device classification and more on device disassembly, which are more of interest for our case of computer vision. In the HR Recycler project, we have selected 4 different use cases that correspond to different device types. So each device has different challenges that will be seen here. So the first is emergency lamps, that the goal is to remove the fluorescent lamps without causing damage. This is important. The next type of device is the microwave ovens that contain numerous components of interest, like motors, glass, and plastic components. The third, and probably one of the most challenging, is the PC towers disassembly. So these include different components that can be reused, like motors, CPU, batteries, plastic cases, and significant quantities of rare materials, precious metals. And finally, another quite popular category for recycling is the displays, the flat panel displays, but also CRTs, which are classified, the FPDs in LCD and LED monitors, have different requirements, each type, and they're also quite important and challenging parts of devices, categories of devices. So after this short introduction of HR Recycler, we can move now to the goal of this presentation and our work, our lab's work within the HR Recycler project, which is the introduction of computer vision in these robot-assisted tasks. So we have mentioned before in the introduction the variability of devices and the complexity during their disassembly. So it is not easy for a robot by itself to proceed to a full disassembly process. We need to combine humans' problem-solving skills with robots' dexterity and durability in order to have efficient disassembly of weird devices in this scheme. What we can offer here is to provide the collaborative robots with the perception of environment. This, in fact, is the provision of visual input to the robotic arm in order to do specific actions like cut, unscrew, grasp components within an electronic device. Our research includes investigation of different state-of-the-art detection algorithms for object detection in order to identify the ones that best fit to this needs, to the needs of recycling. Basically, the majority of these algorithms are related to deep learning object detection. So one important thing to mention here is that the advantages of deep learning is that they're quite very well, very accurate in this object detection ability, but have a limitation, which is actually that required appropriate data for training. So we need specific data for our specific case, which is not easy to have in this industrial environment. So our first step in our research here in HR Recycler was to acquire relevant data through recording in real operational industrial environments. And this is depicted here. So we have set up a specific capturing infrastructure that was installed in 3 different factories, recycling factories that are partners of its recycler project. Here is an example of a Greek industrial partner, Vianat. It's a WE recycling plant in Athens, but we also have also done the same setup in 2 other factories in Spain, in Indumetal and Interrecycling in Portugal. So this camera setup has been used to record the disassembly procedures step by step using 2 fixed positions in 1 handheld camera. So the cameras were recording not only the actions of the worker, but also the small parts that were extracted step by step in its disassembly part. So in our experiments, we used all these WE categories, as we mentioned before, which is the flat panel displays, microwave ovens, PC towers, and emergency labs. And here you can have also some examples of the camera views in the first row of images. So the left and the right view, and also the one which is the handheld view. And the handheld view actually provides more detailed information about the inner of the device and the specific components. And in the next row, you can see some examples of annotated frames, which refer to the emergency lamp use case. So we have segmented manually different parts of the device, as well as some tools, in order to be used for our training algorithms. So some more details on the methodology for object detection. We will try to be as simple as possible, since we have multiple disciplinaries here in our workshop. So the aim is to have a short introduction to the problem. So more details can be also found in a research paper that was published in the context of the Living Machines Conference, and will be presented on the poster session on Thursday. So actually, in object detection, the modern methods can consist of a 2-stage pipeline. The first is a region proposal network, which actually tries to propose regions within an image with high possibility to have targets, actually to have objects. And at the second stage, the region classification, the fully connected network can classify these regions into the available object categories. So as you can see also in the right part of the screen, the picture, here in the region proposal network, there is a sliding window that traverses the whole image. And for each part, for each segment of the image, we can try different anchor boxes, which have different size and shape, in order to capture as many different sizes and shapes of potential objects within an image as possible. So this is more or less part of most region proposal parts consist of. Some baseline methods that we used is the mask RCNN, which is an object detection method that generates segmentation mask corresponding to detected objects, and also cascade RCNN that enhances 2-stage object detection methods by simultaneously training cooperative region classifiers. So here we can say that most of these baseline methods work well with components and objects of a considerably large size, again, depending on the content of the image. We faced some issues and challenges when we're talking about very small objects. That is the case for for this electrical and electronic device. For example, screws, for example, capacitors. These are very small objects, and this makes the object detection using baseline methods very difficult. Why this happens is because small-sized objects usually occupy small areas and they have small resolution within an image. So discrimination is very limited, even with the bare eye, even by a human. And also the methods that have been used, the densely distributed anchor schemes is not always so efficient in case of small objects because it can lead to misalignments between these anchors and the ground truth targets. And we will show in some images in the next slide how this can be overcome by our approach. Okay, so what we tried in our research and proved to be more efficient is to combine these deep learning methods with some handcrafted features which can boost this small object detection performance. One possibility that we used and proved to work well was to use the simplified Gabor wavelets, which are shown in figure 6. And as soon as we pass this filter to our image, we get in figure 7b the Gabor feature maps from these two images. Having this as input can assist in having a better set of anchors that will be used eventually for the classification part in the previous algorithm that we mentioned. So one approach that we followed is using these Gabor filters and use this in addition to the first region, to the areas that were proposed by the region proposal network. So providing a more efficient and a more accurate set of anchor areas that will be used for the classification stage. So the improvement can be shown in figure 9 in B, where you can see that the red rectangle corresponds to an anchor that is used from the region is given from the region proposal network, but then you can have in the blue and the green rectangle that the handcrafted feature can identify better the object of interest and be more accurate in small objects. As an alternative to this approach, we also tried to embedding these features, these handcrafted features of Gabor wavelets to the region proposal network, so giving a new set of feature maps, which are called edge maps, which also some small deviations of the previous network. And we have also tried two more approaches. So the first is to use this this Gabor feature map to drive the construction of a soft attention mask, which finally is multiplied element-wise with the feature map. So we multiply the generated attention mask with the feature map and can give an enhanced feature maps that replaces and can be more relevant to small sized regions. So our final approach is motivated by the notation that the way an object is being manipulated is indicative of its category. So apart from using only the information of the object, we can also combine with information of how human interacts with specific object. This is called an affordance. So this is why we call this attention by affordance architecture. So in the figure 14 and B, you can see where this human object interaction map is depicted. So in these colored areas, we can show the affordances of human interacting with the object. By using this, combining this information, can be proven to be more efficient in identifying hotspots and locate the components of interest to be disassembled. Here we can show some results of these tests. So all the methods are seen in the first column, the baseline compared with the first and second part of edge-enhanced CNN, the attention mask, and also the attention by affordance, which is in the last row. So as we can see, the average precision in the general categories is the first three columns, and then the average precision and recall for the small object specifically is in the last two columns. And as you can see, one of the best average precision can be achieved by also using the affordance-based object detection. The last is an ongoing research of our lab within the HR Cycler project, and we hope to see more advances in the future of the project. So here you can see some examples specifically for very small objects like screws. I'm not sure if this is visible. So the screws are depicted with some small green circles. And if you can see, the most screws can be detected by the last, which is attention-based affordance, column F, as well as column D, which is one of embedding these Gabor filters to the region proposal network. I don't know if we can see this one. Okay, I will try. Okay, so this is a short video that also presents an example of the automatic disassembly of different parts from the recordings in BNAT factory using the baseline approach, of course, but also you can see small object detection like batteries. So the higher is the resolution, the better we can get and identify small objects within the image. So concluding, so as we said, although the deep learning-based methods are capable of grasping complex relations and handling huge amount of data, so we rely heavily on rich visual inspection and therefore fail. So we can address issues of small object detection using handcrafted features in this pipeline. And we also would like to investigate how this affordance-based information, so how the human can interact with the object, could be integrated in this object detection process. To this direction, we are actually building a new data set, which also combines the human interaction, the affordance of the human interacting with specific object categories, and we hope that we will have this data set soon to share within the research community. And as a future work, as we said, we will try this part in action. We will also train action recognition and action anticipation to have more accurate human-object interaction hotspots. Okay, that was all. Thank you very much for your attention. And I think that I'm not sure I haven't counted the time. If we have time for questions, comments.
Yeah, so we have 5 minutes for questions.
Okay, thank you.
So in general, please, if you have some questions, you're free to post them on the chat, on the group chat, so that then people can, or the chair of the session will address them to the speaker each time. So I have a question, and please, whoever has other questions, they're welcome to write them on the chat. So this is quite this is very nice, but what are the limitations of this approach? Like, to which extent can, given the use cases that we have in these projects, which are the limitations? How far can this go in terms of recognition of small objects? Because it seems that in the large ones, it's quite accurate.
Yeah, this is true that still we have not reached a level that can be, let's say, very, very accurate, that can be exploited in industrial environment, relying only in computer vision. As you may know, that this is part is also complemented by the robotic tasks that use different techniques to approach and grasp different objects. So from our part, we try to do our best in having in reaching the most possible accuracy. There is some room for some improvements. As we said, exploiting some affordance information and also some last, let's say, solutions as the one that we proposed for Gabor and handcrafted features. And then we will, these are under research to improve. And I think that we will soon have a clear picture of the limits that we can reach. But as I said, we cannot avoid the human intervention and also the assistance by other disciplines in the robotic part.
Yeah, and can this be?
This means that we will keep the part of vision up to some level, some steps, let's say, of this assembly, and then, if needed, we will have also human intervention. Yeah.
But can this be, let's say, generalized? So from, or to what extent can this be, let's say, generalized from one PC tower to another? Because of course there might be slight differences.
In this case, as I said, it cannot reach very, very high accuracy, but it is quite generalizable because. Of course, this depends on the training set, but we pay attention on having quite a big number of training examples and good databases, so that we can increase the robustness of this and have it more generalizable.
Okay, great.
So, okay, for the needs of the project, we focus on these 4 different types of devices. I cannot say that these will be easily transferred to all types of devices that you can see in this assembly factory. But depending on the data sets, we can go further in this accuracy.
Excellent. One more question, and the audience is thanking you for the talk. Do you use this approach, which is scene analysis, to evaluate the action effect, either from the actor, that would be, I guess, human or robot, or perspective, or the action of another worker?
So we're working on these parts, but actually this is not part of this algorithm. This method. So we follow other methodologies for what you said.
Okay.
I'm not sure if I understood, but.
Or Ewan, you can have you can talk if you
yeah.
This.
I mean, what has to do with action of the worker, we also capture and detect these actions, but using different approaches.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Ah, good. Yeah, thanks for your talk. So yeah, my question is about, so it's a really interesting approach, I think, for analyzing the scene, but I think it's also interesting from the assembly perspective to analyze what is done either by the robot or the worker that is deassembling, or by someone else demonstrating how to disassemble and gather information about the action. So that's the direction of my question. But from what I understand, you're only focusing on the detection of the components and the more lower level information, I would say.
Sorry, just didn't get the last part. Could you please repeat?
Yes. So you're focusing on detecting identifying different class of objects, for example, this battery or like the PCB and so on, but you're not doing analysis to see, for example, when someone interacts with the device that you're analyzing, how does that change the device? Like, for example, if someone cuts a wire, how does that actually influence what's the new scene? You don't do this kind of prediction. You just analyze the scene at the current time.
Well, the aim of this algorithm, yes, is to get to analyze the information from images. So these actions basically are not taken into account in this specific algorithm, but we also foresee a task that captures the action of humans in order to understand specific steps of the disassembly process, which actually another part of another task. Okay, so we will see how to fuse this information at the next stage. So if something happens and we need to predict some actions and see how to move. Okay. So basically, what we have shown now, it's not taking into account a specific action, but we would like to investigate, as I said, along with some detection of actions, how to use and fuse this information at the next stage.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So I think in terms of time, we have to stop here and welcome our next speaker.
I'm stopping sharing, Vicky. Thank you.
Yes, so you can present the next speaker. I will. So thank you very much, Apostolos, for this talk. Now, Sebastian Kurtz is going to present advanced robotic skills for recycling processes. So Sebastian, are you ready?
Yes, I am. I'm here. Can you hear me fine?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. Let me just start screen sharing also. Okay, this works, right?
Yes, great.
Perfect. Okay, so I just start?
Yes, please. Thank you.
So my name is Sebastian Kertz. I'm a PhD student at Technical University Munich. And I want to talk to you about advanced robotic skills for recycling processes. At our institute, we want to develop new and better strategies for control. And one of the main drivers is the application to robotics, in particular, planning robot actions and movement, controlling the robot so it behaves like we planned. And all that, of course, also in shared workspaces, as is the topic of this workshop, and with other robots, humans, or any other agents in the same workspace. My group is part of, or the group I'm in is part of the HR Recycler project. And this is the same slide we saw in Apostolos' talk before, where I highlighted here which part we are really involved in, which is to design the control strategies and plan for the robotic arm to disassemble objects. So this is mainly depollution, I think, which is the most important thing, but also opening up devices, unscrewing and opening up a microwave, removing components of interest, removing fragile mercury lamps from an emergency lamp and things like that. So our goal in one sentence maybe within this project is to control robot motion and interaction with the environment for disassembly skills. And I highlighted this here with a few pictures. The robot and human are in a shared workspace, and we can imagine the robot sitting on a table somewhere with the human close by. Skills really means the usage of different tools, screwdrivers, wire cutters, shaft grinders, gripper to remove things. And for disassembly, as said before, might be a mercury lamp, as seen on the bottom left here, might be opening up a microwave or PC tower, remove a PCB, and so on. This is really ongoing research. We're a while into the project, but not nearly finished. And it's really open here how far we can go in terms of limits, in terms of smaller objects, small screws, harder to open things, and so on. And for me, the challenges are really twofold, I think, and somewhat related. And the first big one, which is obvious and was part of the whole first talk from Apostolos as well, is that we have so many unknowns. So if you imagine that we just place a microwave in front of the robot and want to unscrew it, open it up, we cannot really rely much on any models to find the screws, right? Because there's obviously many different brands and kinds of microwaves out there. And even if we had a model, this is the recycling industry, so the object might be broken, damaged, covered in some dust or dirt. It's not straight out of the package, brand new, right? So there's really not much help to be expected here. And we need to rely purely on the senses that the robot has at his disposal. So the obvious one being vision, for example, to find the screws. But then again, vision will certainly help us find screws, but we cannot expect it to do the full job. As we just saw, there's a really hard problem. And even if we will find most of them, we cannot probably necessarily expect perfect localization within 3D space. And in the end, we need to employ something to support vision. And what we want to do is really how humans and other animals, of course, do it, is also use the sense of touch, which is tactile sensing, to record forces that act on the robot in the wrist, and also at the gripper on front, if we're using that, to find out what's going on a little more. So to deal with uncertainty, tactile sensing, sense forces, torques, to reduce uncertainty. And then, of course, we need robust solutions that can cope with the remaining unknowns. Now, in some contrast to that, of course, always safety is important, both for the robot and the human. And we want to guarantee safety for robot and human collaborator at any time. And to be safe here, of course, design controllers that do their job and also react to human actions and motions and behave in such a way that the robot is predictable to the human. And I'll go a little more into detail on that later. So now I plan this talk to be a little more high level due to the multiple disciplines represented here in this workshop. And I think these two challenges fit well to be the underlying theme for the rest. And I think we'll start with uncertainty and how to learn a little bit more about the world by force sensing. And I'll just highlight a few ideas and go through them on a little higher level. So one solution we're looking at is related to a very specific problem in HR Recycler, which is that we might be able to remove some screws and open up some fixtures. And then we want to remove the top plate, say, of a microwave, but it's still fixed in place. So removing all known fixtures is not always enough. There might be hidden ones left. And the idea here is to maybe just, when we're lifting up the top case, that we notice in terms of bending of the object that fixtures remain. And by doing a 3D finite element method simulation of how the object would bend depending on different fixture positions and comparing that to how it bends in real life, find out how many fixtures or where fixtures roughly might be. So we're at the starting stage with this, but I think it's an interesting thing that actually might work quite well, and it's basically just a nonlinear regression based on a finite element method simulation. Another idea to reduce uncertainty is also a pretty straightforward way, is instead of doing the probing as before to bend the object, we just go along the surface of it and record samples and refine a model, right? We might get this model already or the shape of an object from vision, and that we can do haptic exploration and shape refinement. And maybe also couple this with material classification. There's some ideas here how to do this. Depending on end effector, we might do something smart like heat up the material for a short while and then record how fast the temperature drops. Ideas like that exist, and we need to test feasibility and so on. And yeah, but this is sort of another idea of reducing uncertainty, which is just to store data you record with the robot while going along the surface. Now, there's also ways to straight up deal with unknowns instead of endlessly continuing to just sense the environment. One big thing here is to rely on force measurements while controlling actions such as grasping. So we can continuously send velocity commands to our gripper. So tell it how fast the gripper should open or close its fingers, and have a method here that works for industrial grippers, and choose this desired velocity based on what force we estimate to be acting at the grip, and also based on the weight of the object we feel at the wrist sensor of the robot. So this allows fast reactions, as you can see on the right here, where opening and closing the grip is actually really not an easy thing to do so fast that you can hold this ruler in place for a while and drop it, have it accelerated by gravity and hold it again. And now I'm sorry, I've just been informed that my Microsoft PowerPoint is not functioning anymore. Let's see what happens if I press X. Maybe I need to start sharing a new. Yes, it looks like it. Okay, let's see. You can see the screen again, right?
It's all good.
Yes, okay, perfect. Okay, where was I? So we're holding the object, and if the wrist measures some weight pulling it down, we can also know that we are holding an object, right? And if at the wrist the weight decreases again, we know it's left its grasp. So we can do some things with that idea here. And the big advantage is also that we don't need to know object dimensions a priori, so before the grasp. Because the classical way to do grasping in industry is to set how close you want your fingers to be, and then you let the gripper do its job, and it tells you back when it's done, it's closing to the desired position. But for that, of course, you need to know your desired position. If you only tell it you want a certain force, you don't need to know it. You just close the fingers until they feel something. And so this is what we want to go for, to grasp all different kinds of objects within the HR recycler context. Now, there's also one other thing related to grasping, and that is we can also try to make use of force sensors at the fingertips. So on the very right here, you see a gripper with a 6x8, I think, or no, a little bigger, but with a force grid on it. So this is like a matrix, and in each cell, there's a pressure sensor, and they get read out individually. We get a big a matrix of forces or pressures sensed. And we have that on both sides of the fingers and can use it to align ourselves to delicate objects. So the idea is here, especially for a use case such as removing mercury lamps, like on the left, where safety is also important, right? It would be a health hazard. We don't want to break it. And it's breaking quite easily in some cases. And we need to grasp this lamp and turn it slightly and then remove it. And I made a small drawing in the middle here to maybe overstate it, but to show a little what happens if we close the grip, but we're not perfectly aligned, right? So normally we would sort of rotate the tube by applying the force from the sides. But if it's fixed at top and bottom here, as you can imagine, we might break it. So this is basically the motivation why we want to perfectly align, and we'll use this force matrices on both sides of the gripper to basically control gripper orientation such that these matrices are symmetrical. As you can see in the picture here, for example, you can clearly read out from each matrix where contact is made to the object, and then have it be symmetrical so you know you're perfectly aligned. Now, that was my part about uncertainty. For skills, in general, we have some ideas. We want to learn skills from human demonstration if they're not very straightforward, but more complicated. And we'll use kinesthetic teaching, which is basically you move the robot arm in a way in which you want, and the robot remembers and follows the same trajectory later. And is while you're moving the robot arm, the robot is just in gravity compensation mode, so you can easily handle it. And we also have human demonstrations without a robot, as seen here in the screwdriver picture, where we track forces and torques by sensors at the tip of the screwdriver, and have also a tracking system around it to get the position in space. And so we can see a little bit what's going on and try to combine this to drive our control strategy, which could then be something like an impedance control for those that don't know, which is basically just imagining that you have a spring between where your robot is and the environment, or where your robot should be and the environment, and you can change the stiffness of this imaginary spring to be more compliant to outside forces, less compliant, and so on. So this is the thing for skills. We have skills, uncertainty, both covered, I think, a little bit. And my next point would be to talk about the safety in the human shared workspace context. And I put efficiency here already because I think this is closely coupled. If you go to the extremes, of course, it's very easy to have a safe robot because you can just shut it off. But if you also want to efficiently reach your goals in terms of skills and so on that you need to do, then the question is, how can I be safe, but not just move super slow or something like this, and efficient with humans nearby? So first, maybe a little more into efficiency. There's actually something related to that in robotics, which comes from the fact that the robot has joint limits. So the angle of each joint in the robot has a maximum and a minimum. Like our elbow, for example, once it's straight, we cannot bend it any further in that direction. And this, of course, means that the robot cannot at all times move in every direction and space with all degrees of freedoms as it normally would. So the freedoms available in the current pose of the robot, this called manipulability. And in order to react to unforeseen situations, to have a human in the same workspace that could possibly move all of a sudden in our direction, we should be able to move everywhere as much as possible. We want manipulability to be as high as possible at all times. So one thing we're looking at is how to actually trajectory plan to maximize manipulability globally, and do this online. And there are some preliminary results. We have a paper here that's more about analyzing manipulability. I will go a little more talk about online trajectory generation, I think, in the next or second next slide. And I think there's ways to combine these to find good approaches that guarantee we can always react if something happens, no matter where. So, which with humans close by, I already mentioned the main thing is that we want the robot to go slower, and this is shown here in a video. And I didn't mention it in the slide before, but or no, I think it's in the one to come. I'm sorry. That the trajectory generation also needs to be able to deal with step inputs, which is what we have here. So you can see the robot is going slower, and this is, of course, for human comfort, for human safety. And we also need the robot trajectory generation to be able to deal with unforeseen sensor measurement, abrupt user decisions, or anything that really interferes with a smooth trajectory that the robot might be given otherwise. So there might be sudden changes, and the generator needs to deal with that. And this is also in this same approach, this trajectory generation approach. And another thing maybe I want to point out here is that actually in a lot of robot literature, constraints for the velocity, so if I want to tell my robot to move slower while generating trajectories for it, are done in joint space, right? So where I have angular velocities in each joint, which I constrain. But this is really not that intuitive if you're a human standing next to the robot, because what you might care much more about is, for example, how fast the end effector moves. And that's something completely different, because if three joints all move in the same direction, even if their angular velocity is somehow limited, the end effector might still move quite fast and unexpectedly so. So this is really not user-friendly, and what we did here with this online trajectory generator is come up with a way without singularities to constrain magnitude of velocity in 3D translational and rotational space, so in real space for the end effector. Now, of course, though, we don't want to always go slow unnecessarily. I pointed that out before when talking about efficiency. And also, if humans collaborate or share the same workspace, we don't behave super slowly all the time. while next to each other and say building Lego together, as in a picture here, and we rarely collide while doing so. So how come? And our idea was that it might be 2 points. First, one main point is we predict each other's motions, right? If I move my hand towards this yellow Lego brick, you might already guess that I want to grasp it. And you know you won't move in between my hand and the yellow Lego brick, so there's no conflict there. And we also make it easy to have others predict our motion. This might be inherent, but by minimizing energy needed for things, or just following the direct path and things like that, not zigzagging through space, we make it easy to be predictable for others. And we want both for robots. We want to be able to predict humans around us and plan motions that accord for human motion. And we want also to have to let robot motions be legible, be easily predictable for the humans, so that humans can easily guess where the robot wants to go. To understand all this, we focused on close proximity human-human interactions, and did some inverse reinforcement learning, assuming that humans minimize some cost functions, such as time and energy, along their behavior. And this knowledge, the same cost, we can then apply to control our robot and try to validate the cost in 2 experiments again. One, to see if our robot is really more predictable, by having the robot drive towards, in this picture on the right here, you can see a yellow, blue, and red brick. Have the robot go towards one of those, and the human has to point out as fast as possible, as fast as he understands where the robot wants to go, to which brick the robot is going. And we found some improving results here with these cost functions. And we were also able in other experiments to have quite good predictions on human motion, at least for the next split second or second, or so this time frame where you want to be able to adapt and react fast enough. So to recap, we have our trajectory somewhat safe and efficient now. We predict human motion to try and avoid not only the current human position, but also future ones in our planned path. And what's left to talk about is what happens if we collide. I think no matter how much we do, there'll always be some form of collision. This is the same for us humans, right? We collide into each other on the sidewalk even. And there's really nothing we can do about it, so we need to handle it properly. We need to have a controller ready for that. And what we did is classify events into no collision, accidental collision, and intentional contact. Use a feed-forward neural network to do the classification, and then couple this with an online diagnosis using Bayesian inference to figure out. And if the contact seems intentional, for example, because you're grasping it close to joints and constantly, there's a constant force applied, then the robot just goes into full compliant gravity compensation mode, and you can guide it wherever you want it to go. So if you're working next to it and you think the robot should stop doing what it's doing, you just put your hand on its shoulder and push it away slightly. And if it bumps into you, it stops, as we saw before in the video. So that concludes my talk. I think I've also hit my time limit, and I want to thank you all for the attention and reopen the floor for questions and the moderators.
Thank you very much. It was a very nice talk. While people can write questions in the chat, I have one question here. I mean, that was a great talk. So what I was wondering is, I mean, these robots are going to have different kinds of tools that they will be using to manipulate, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So in that case, how different that the safety component would be given the types of tools that they're using in terms of manipulation? I mean, I assume that some might, I mean, any tool would not be safe if it hits a human, of course, but would there be any difference in terms of like having something that is like a screwdriver or a hammer or even like a laser cutter? I would assume that that would be a lot more dangerous than something else. So would that make any difference in a way?
Yes, definitely. I think you can also actually always assign, if you want to do it very detailed, you would assign to each tool a sort of safety radius where you want the human to be around, right? And that might maybe depend on how much time you have to get out of the way. and also how fatal or catastrophic contact with a robot would be. So if the robot is using a screwdriver, we could probably make it in such a way compliant that it won't apply too much force, right? And it would probably never really be a problem, as you saw in the last video here, if the robot bumps into your arm, even with a screwdriver. But if it's using a shaft grinder to cut through the aluminum casing of a microwave, you don't want your fingers near the end effector, right? So I think this is really, yeah, maybe even a completely open question how the world of robotics will look in the future for end effectors that might have some destructive property. After all, we don't stand next to other humans, right? When they're doing, I mean, you never stand completely in the face of someone welding right now, or you always take a step back. So yeah.
Even the way that you hand tools to someone else, given the type of tool, you
exactly, yeah,
hand it, right?
Yes, and you might keep your eye on your sister carrying a knife in the kitchen even. So this is, I think, of course, safety will hugely depend on what tool the robot has in its hand.
So that would be part of, I mean, like this would be taking into consideration while you are developing these safety measurements while the use of tools, I assume.
Yes, exactly. So I think in the end, the idea would be that we have some form of information about where the human is related to the robot, of course. Of course, we need that for the human motion prediction anyway. We will have vision around the cell, right? And can maybe use, depending on the current tool used, have some sort of system in place that makes it clear how close you can approach, and also so makes it clear for the human, and also adapts how the robot behaves, right? If the tool is dangerous, the robot might just stop immediately if the human comes into, I don't know, a 1 meter radius. And as we saw in the video before, maybe if the tool is not that dangerous, it just goes slower with the screwing to give some comfort, and that's it.
Great. And one last question. And I also, I would also welcome people to, or advise people while they have the questions, they can write them down so that then we know how many we have in the end. So did you train your feed-forward neural network to classify the interaction with the robot, intended, non-intended, and no collision, recording many examples with a human or with the simulation tool?
This was actually done with real experiments. Yes. So yeah, exactly. So as you can see, this was a student in our lab, and he had the he had the job to have the robot. Yeah, sorry.
He was a guinea pig.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, he had the job to have the robot run against his arm. I actually don't know the exact number, and it wasn't super big, and so this is of course a question: how scalable would this approach be using feed-forward neural networks, right? But what we could maybe do is have some sort of long-term learning here, or lifelong learning. Why not improve the system as it goes along if collisions are not catastrophic? If you know beforehand they're gonna be catastrophic, we need to stop immediately or something. If then, yeah, there's some work to do how to handle collisions, definitely.
Excellent. And another question, which is how reliable is the halting procedure under collisions for ensuring human safety?
I had that written down somewhere. So in the experiments we did, I think it was like 20 something at the start, and then some more, close to 100 or so. We had like 96 or 97% correct classification between no collision, accidental collision, and intentional contact. So it was like in the high 90s, but of course not enough to say this robot can now work for 10 years, right? Because then you're gonna have a lot of wrong classifications.
Still quite impressive, I would say.
For this setup, maybe yes, yeah, of course, and of course it also depends on what kind of where the collision is, right? So you saw in the video, this is how we did it. Of course, you could also try to fool this classifier by having the robot collide with you while you're very close to the first joint, maybe, or something like this. But this is a first step, I think. Yeah.
Okay, great. So thank you very much. I think it's time for the next presentation.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you for this interesting talk. Albert, are you ready?
Yeah. Okay. Do you? Yeah.
Yes, I'll
Share my
stop sharing.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Yeah. Here. Right. Okay. Yeah. Do you see my screen? Do you see my screen correctly?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. So let's start then.
You can put it if you
Yeah.
wish. You can put it in full screen if you wish.
Yeah. It just. I don't think it's.
It's not in full screen unless you have.
Yeah, it's not responding. Yeah, now, okay.
Great.
Okay, sorry about that. Okay, I'm Albert Tissot from Sadako Technologies. And like the two previous presenters, we are a company that focuses on AI. We are not a research center. And yeah, the topic of our talk is the applications of computer vision and AI in the fields of electronic waste management and smart recycling processes. So we can go over a quick outline of the presentation. We'll first introduce our company, Sadako Technologies, who we are, what we do, why we do it. We'll then go really quickly over the recycling process that the HR Recycler project proposes, which we have also seen before. And then we will go more in details of how we implement the vision for the classification and disassembly steps. Okay, so in Sadako Technology, we are a group of 30 people. We believe that AI is kind of the new electricity per se. We believe it has a really disruptive power for the industry and the world in general. Which is made available by the latest developments in GPU technology, which will make this technology deployable in a large scale. And yeah, it's a technology that allows software to perform intelligent and complex tasks in the virtual as well as in the real world. So yeah, in Sadako, we want to generate AI to make the world a better place, which would be bringing the AI technology in fields where improvements are much needed, which at the moment is the recycling industry. We have after applying this philosophy and many years of research and development, we have created a product along with bulk handling systems, which is a recycling equipment manufacturer in Eugene. We have developed the first commercial robotic sorting solution for municipal solid waste sorting. I can show you a quick video just to so you can see what we are talking about in detail. So yes, we have developed a robot that is able of sorting objects on conveyor belts inside the recycling facilities. So in Sadako, let's say, we would be the eyes and the brain of the robot. We work on everything that's related to vision, and BHS handles the marketing, the deployment, the maintenance of the robot. The first unit ever installed was in Los Angeles in April 2017, around 3 years ago. And today we have around 100 robots operating in 4 continents. And yeah, there's a high demand for this product in the recycling industry as it reduces the contact of workers with the waste, which is really a critical issue in the field, as waste can be a source of maybe diseases or wounds for operators. Another industry we have been wanting to move into lately is the electronic waste industry, which is the most growing waste stream in the world, which also a very small part of it is recycled actually. The recycling of said waste requires expensive and time-consuming manual effort to recycle and process the materials. So yeah, there's a need of automation and cost reduction for this technology. Which is why we have joined the HR Recycler project to develop a hybrid human-robot electronic waste treatment plant. Which would be also an occasion for us to bring our technology to this field and extend our AI knowledge. So, getting more into the detail of the implementation of the HR Recycler, is actually a quick layout that we've seen before of the recycling process. We have a classification step where the objects, the 4 objects we've talked about, we've seen before, computers, flat panels, microwaves, and emergency lamps come in big baskets, really mixed. And we have a robot arm that sorts the objects and puts them into 4 different pallets, 1 for each robot. We then have an AGV which carries the pallet to the disassembly station. And then, where, as we've seen in the TOOM's presentation, an operator is assisted by a collaborative robot to dismantle the object. And once the object is dismantled, another AGV comes to get the dismantled parts and brings them to the final processing. In Sadako, we developed the vision for the classification part of the process, some of the AGV vision, and the fixed camera that has the operator in the scene on the workstation. So moving on to the vision for the classification step. The objective of this task is to build computer vision algorithms based on deep learning and deep neural network architectures to identify the different electronic waste devices that are in the box. Really quickly, we do that by feeding RGB information from a camera into an object detector, and then we feed the detections as well as the depth image in a point cloud processing algorithm to then retrieve the location, orientation, and type of object that needs to be grasped by the robot. Okay. So moving on to the object detector. The object detector is based on a neural network which has been built with all the available data that has been collected at the recycling facilities. Have been 2 rounds of recordings at Bianat's facility in Athens, as Sert mentioned before, and 1 recording campaign that has been conducted in Dumetal in Bilbao in late December. So we capture the waste basket from different angles and label all the images, and we use it to build a data set. Which, yeah, to build this data set, we have labeled around 1900 images, and with the use of data augmentation techniques, we can get a data set with tens of thousands of polygons. Yeah, at the moment we have a data set that is pretty much balanced, and that gives us the following results. Yeah, so this is a precision recall chart. If you're not familiar with it, the recall metric would be the percentage of objects that are detected, and the precision would be, once the object is detected, the percentage of objects that are detected with the correct category. So moving a threshold of detection score, we get the graph we are seeing now. We can see that yeah, this model gives us a good performance. We have tried it on 2 sets of images. The set on the right is images from Invumetal, which processes, it's a facility that processes mostly microwaves and PC towers. And yeah, it's a category on which we have a good score. And the VNAT set, it's bigger, and yeah, as categories in which we have fewer examples, so the metrics are a bit lower, but still good. But in any case, the operational performance will be fully assessed during integration tests, because these metrics they take into account all the objects that are seen in the image, whereas in operation, the most important object to be correctly detected is the one that is going to be grasped, which is in most cases the one that's the most on top of the pile. So that is not directly a measure of the purity of each electronic waste pallet that we will encounter in operation. Okay, just a quick image of the classification setup we have built in our offices, which is really similar to the one that we will find in operation. We use RealSense cameras, really mounted on top of a waste basket. Yeah. As for the operation of the software, we operate the cameras and the software output via ROS. And we make a grasping decision in the pile based on the height of the grasping point, the size, and the orientation of the grasping surface. Okay. Moving on to the vision for the disassembly step. The method we have applied is similar as the one for the classification step. It's based on deep learning and deep neural network architectures, but this time to identify different human gestures and the pose, position, and orientation of operators in an image. So there's kind of two streams in this step. We have one stream that relies only on the action detection, and the other stream that relies on the position detection. So moving on to the action recognition, we have 2 sets of actions that we detect. One first set of actions is related to the human-robot interaction. You can see a video here. An example of the data sets I've worked on, in which we associate one gesture that we have previously chosen to one action that the worker would need to communicate with the robot, such as start the action, stop the action, cancel, yes or no, put the robot in sleep mode, this type of human-robot collaboration schemes that we have defined. And we have then another set of actions that we detect, which would be the actions that really only rely on in which stage of the disassembly of the object we are in, and which actions the operator is performing on the object, such as moving the object, cutting cables, hammering, unscrewing, this type of movements. Okay, and these actions are then used as the input for a central task planner that reorganizes the work in the factory accordingly. So yes, this is images we have collected during the recording campaign into Metal. We have also added a bit more images in recording human-robot interaction actions from the Sadako personnel. And we ended up with around 2,300 videos. And we have gotten then the following results as the performance of the neural network. So this is a confusion matrix for those who are not familiar with it. We have the ground truth categories on the left and the predicted categories on the top. So ideally, if the network was perfect, we only get let's say points on the diagonal. Every point that's not on the diagonal relates to an action that has been misidentified. But in our case, we get 93% accuracy on our validation set. Another thing that we can see from this is that we don't get confusion between the robot interaction gestures and the operational gestures. The first 7 categories relates to the human-robot interaction. We have still some confusion on certain specific gestures, such as the yes gesture or the cut cable action. There's still some room for improvement that we can reach either recording more data at the operator's facility or using data from public data sets, action data sets, such as the NTU data set. Okay, here we have a demo video where we can see Mikel, one of the engineers that developed these solutions. With the action detection software. In operation or something else. Okay. So this is the state of the technology at the moment. We see that most of the actions are correctly identified. Okay, so then moving on to the pose detection software. It's a software that retrieves the position, orientation, and the ID of the operators. It's a software that we deploy in the workstations as well as on board the AGVs. so they can adjust their path planning in real time to avoid potential collisions or unwanted interactions with the operators in the plant. And yeah, it's a software that's based on OpenPose, which is publicly available. What we have made in Saraco is really the implementation for this use case. Yeah, also OpenPose only retrieves the skeletons on the image, and the implementation we have made also includes the position of this skeleton in space. Here we can see a video of this software functioning. On the left, we can see the RGB image with the inferred skeleton on it, and on the right, we see the depth image, which is retrieved by the RGBD camera. On the bottom left, we can see the position in XYZ coordinates in meters, and below we get the orientation of the operator in which direction he's facing. Okay. So yeah, that was all for our presentation. Thank you for attending. And if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Albert, for the wonderful talk. I have one question for you.
Yes.
Is there a difference between hand users? Some people would be left-handed, some people might be right-handed. So it would be possible that many of these actions from the communication actions that you showed, or even screwing and unscrewing, people might use different hands in order to perform the same actions. Or some, of course, people might use different ways of performing some actions. I'm not sure. Would that be accounted for? Would that be something that it would still recognize someone who's unscrewing with a right hand or with the left hand, for example?
Yes. Technically, the network is available to detect both hands. In the case of the human-robot interaction actions, we have specifically said to the operators, and when we recorded the data set, to perform the actions with the left hand. Because in most cases the operators are right-handed, and it's the left hand is more likely to be free. But in any case, for the action recognition, we record as much operators as possible, really performing the work as they will do in completely normal operation. So if one operator is right-handed and another is left-handed, it's a variability that's accounted for when we build the data set. So in operation, would be able to detect almost any way of performing the gestures.
Okay, so that would also include, so then the variability of these actions would include both, let's say, hand dominance, as well as, let's say, variability in actions in terms of how one worker would unscrew or hammer an object compared to another worker, of how they would use the same hammering, well, the action of hammering in order to remove a plastic, let's say, from a...
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, when we have the final version of the dataset, that's what we will be able to reach. At the moment, I think in Indumetal we were able to record, I think it was 7 different operators dismantling the waste, but that's a dataset that is going to get bigger as the project progresses. Yes.
And how many training examples would you need for something like that?
I don't have a specific figure, but yeah, the data set we have built here, it's we used around 2,300 videos. It was, I think, yeah.
Okay. Right.
That's including human-robot interaction and action recognition actions. Yeah, the dismantling actions.
Very nice. Very nice.
Mm-hmm.
If we do we have any more questions? If not, then we can take a short break until 11:20 so that we stick to the program. Thank you very much, Albert.
Thank you.
Okay.
I'm gonna stop sharing the screen.
So I'm gonna just put this one. So we will have a short break. So at 11:20 we shall resume. Thank you very much everyone for attending so far, and we will resume in 15 minutes. See you now.
Thank you very much. See you.
The silicon must be correctly applied within the contact area and spread evenly. And in the riveting, the tool used is heavy. So we are talking about more or less 5 kilos for the tool. And what's more important, it's the recoil of the tool. So when the operator perform the riveting task, sometimes it causes serious injuries after a long use of this tool. So for this reason, with the Sherwood project, the robot will be able to take care of these tasks, and just let the operator control the robot and check the quality of the assembly. So here you can see a simulation of the proposed solution. Now the operator is cleaning the surface to let the robot apply the silicone using a predefined path. You can see that we are planning to use a cobot mounted on a linear axis, and then no fences are needed. The Goisper use case is focused on the assembly of servo-rotatory tables. In this assembly operation, the human operators must tighten a lot of bolts, which is a low value added task. And moreover, the correct torque must be applied to the screws. And what's more important is that they need to be tightened in a specific sequence. This produces a lot of human errors that will be solved by introducing the robot assistance in this task. Another task to face in this use case is the quality inspection of the cam followers. In this task, the input shaft must be rotated while observing the followers through 2 openings and using a mirror. You can see it there in the picture. The rotation must be controlled both in torque and velocity, which causes physical fatigue. So the average numbers are 20 rotation, applying a torque of 250 Newton meter, which is a high physical demand. So the solution we are planning here is to let the shearwork system to move the input shaft controlled by human gestures. Hence, the operator can focus on the quality inspection, and then he can reduce the injuries due to the physical fatigue. Here, you can see a simulation of the proposed solution for the ball Titan. So with the cobot, we plan to use a cobot to assist the screwing. And then you can also see the motor for the assistant in the shaft rotation. Okay, the next use case is Nissan, which is focused on the mounting of the front and rear doors on vehicles. This task can be divided in two phases. One is the positioning of the doors, and the other is the proper installation of these doors. Nevertheless, the time needed for the operator to walk to the door conveyor and then move the door towards the car is lost time, and then this is a task better done autonomously by the robot. Also, the manual position of the electrical hoist during the door assembly results in poor economics. In this case, the operator with the shearwork solution will interact with the robot using hand gestures and voice commands instead of using push buttons. This will let free the operator hands, reducing physical fatigue and also increasing productivity. Other challenges that will face the robot in this scenario is the need for the automatic recognition of the door silhouettes, since different car models will be used, and also the fact that the car line is constantly moving and then the robot must adapt its movement to the car motion. In the simulation of the proposed solution, you can see the robot mounted on a gantry and moving the door autonomously towards the car. And then the operator can do the electrical connections. Finally, the chamber use case is focused on the load and unload of pallets in CNC machines. In the chamber facilities, the parts to be fixed are mounted on multi-fixturing devices called pallets. You can see them in the pictures. The project aims to assist the operators with the screw and unscrew operation, which are so repetitive and low value added, and also to assist the operators with the check of the parts, since there is a considerable number of pallet configuration, which is currently causing a lot of mounting error. So Chamber is producing more than 200 different products. So that's why they have a lot of, there is a lot of pallet configuration. In addition, the operators are subjected to a high workload when moving the metal parts. So thanks to the robot assistant, the operator ergonomics will improve. You can see there in the simulation of the proposed solution that we are planning to mount a cobot on a gantry to help the operator in the load of the pallets. Then the robot will identify the metal parts to be machined, and it will grasp the fixtures to be used to fix the metal part on the pallet, and also will help with the assembly of this fixturing. Okay, so thank you for your attention. I hope you could see more or less what Sherwood is about. Now, if you have questions, I will be glad to answer them.
Thank you very much. Before we start with the questions, I would like to let you know that perhaps it's better if we don't, after the end of these talks, we can have the discussion immediately after, not have this short break, so we can finish earlier, or we can have even more time for discussion, if you all agree, so you can let me know. And now for the talks, for the questions, if you have any questions, please post them in the chat. And I have a question regarding the collaboration. So how is the collaboration achieved within this project? So collaboration happens when both the machine, the robots and humans work simultaneously, for example, on a specific object?
Yeah, so for example, in this last use case, you can see that the robot and the human operator are working on the same object. So they are collaborating in the assembly of, in fixing the metal part of the pallet, for example.
So there is again, just as other projects, there's not any fences. So the idea is that they can work together in this common workspace, correct?
Yeah, exactly. So there are no fences, and the idea is that both the robot and the operator share the same environment and work on the same object. Yeah.
Would robots have tool use?
So we are planning to use robot from Universal Robots. And also for the Nissan use case, we are planning to use an industrial robotic arm from Fanuc.
Great, but would they use tools such as like screwdrivers or anything like that in order to operate on the assembly?
Yeah, we are planning to use some specific tools for each use case, and then they are different across the use cases.
Hello. May I ask also a question, Nestor? Thank you very much for the
You're welcome.
very nice presentation. I would like to ask if you could summarize what you consider the most challenging use case or the most challenging aspect concerning the human-robot collaboration in the use cases that are considered in this project. Both in terms of safety or in terms of challenges that relate to collaboration aspects or perception aspects, or is there something that you consider as the most challenging part of this?
Yeah, so I guess that the Nissan use case, this one, is the most challenging, since this is the only use case where there are force interactions between the robot and the human. And the other use cases, there's only sharing of the workspace, but not not sharing forces. The human and the robot are not operating on the same object at the same time. So for the human-robot collaboration, this is the most challenging use case, and also for the perception, since since we have the gantry, we have the cars moving, and also the conveyor for the doors. It's difficult to place the cameras, and also since everything is moving, this is making some issues with the synchronization and also on the perception side. So yeah, the Nissan use case is the most challenging one.
Thank you, Nestor. Thank you very much. I also agree with your point of view, and I find your consideration rather reasonable in this case of where forces also are involved.
Do we have any other questions from the audience? If
May I also ask? This is Apostolos. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thank you, Nestor, for this presentation. So, since this is also something that is of interest for me in the research aspect, related to these two use cases, the one with Nissan and also another, the last one, I think, that included some screwing and unscrewing. Yeah, I think it's this one. With respect to the perception and the vision, are you having specific methodology for this? What you use and how efficient is this part in order to handle these tasks?
Yeah, so in all the, not only for these two use cases, but the other two also, we are planning a redundant system for the perception. So we have we're using cameras to detect the objects and to track the human, but also we are using some safety sensor that are certificate to ensure that no collision occur with the human, and also that we are not injuring the operator. So the perception models are not 100% perfect, so that's why we need this second redundant perception system, only to be sure that we are not colliding. So.
Thanks. So with respect to collision and safety, okay, it makes sense. With respect to accuracy in terms of handling the specific task, so finding the correct part, do you also need the human intervention or something else to complement with the vision?
For the screwing operation, you mean, or
yeah, for example, yes, for example.
Yeah, so for the screwing operation, we are mounting cameras on the tool, and also we have 4-stroke sensors on the TCP, and then there's no need for the help of the operator to find the screw and also screw it.
Okay, thank you. This is interesting. Yeah, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So if there are no more questions, we can proceed to the next talk. So thank you very much, Nestor. We will resume and talk more in the discussion session. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And our next speaker is Fotis Dimeas. He's from the Aristotle University of Thessaloniki. And he's going to present human-robot collaboration in assembly tasks. And this is relevant with a European project called Collaborate. Fotis, are you ready?
Hi. Yes. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can. You can put it in full screen. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you for inviting me in this workshop. I'm Fotis Dimeas from Aristotle University, and I will talk about a little bit about the Collaborate project. First, I have a video to show you. I don't know if you can hear the audio from my computer.
No, I think you should share the audio.
I will narrate it. So this is an explanatory video we have for our project. So we're working with assembly in the industry, and currently robots don't have that flexibility and they work under fences. So the idea of Collaborate is to engage human in collaboration with a robot for assembly tasks in a co-production cell. So the human will be able to work together with the robot and we will enable genuine human-robot collaboration for some types of tasks that will include multiple that require multiple developments. We have 4 use cases that we'll describe a little bit detailed later. The first one is a car starter assembly, where the human will demonstrate the task to the robot. Another use case is a windshield assembly and inspection, where we have heavy loads. Third is the TV assembly, an LCD TV assembly, where the human and the robot will share workspaces, and also the robot manipulator will collaborate with an AGV. And finally, we have a structure of aerospace, riveting of aerospace structure. But you will see that a robot manipulator is on top of an AGV for increased workspace. We are 14 partners. This project is coordinated by Aristotle University. We have 4 SMEs, and if you want to take a look at our recent advances, you can follow our project website or our social media. So, as I mentioned, we are 14 partners. 8 of them are academia and research institutes. We have 2 SMEs, and we also have 4 manufacturers throughout Europe. The focus of this project is on assembly applications, which are still heavily dependent on hard automation. So the idea here is that if the robots were allowed to collaborate with human workers for both learning and executing these tasks, a lot of these challenges would be addressed. So the ambition of our project is to make industrial robots to learn how to cooperate with humans to perform assembly operations. And to do that, we want to equip these robots with collaborative skills, with adaptability, and of course, safety strategies. A little bit more details on the use cases. The first one, as I said, is a car starter assembly. The challenge here is how to demonstrate the task to the robot, either visually or kinesthetically, until the robot has learned to execute it autonomously. Here we want to engage with learning from demonstration, and we also want to do a dynamic task sharing allocation. Finally, we want the robot to self-improve using artificial intelligence. The next task is a little bit different. We have a big payload. We have a windshield that will be eventually positioned to a car. And we want the robot here to help the human on carrying the load, of course, but because this we need inspection and accurate positioning of this object, we want the robot to estimate the intentions of the human in order to be proactive. And of course, we also want the robot to adapt to the human ergonomics. The third use case is performing assembly of TVs on a conveyor belt. Here we have a human and a robot sharing the workspace and working on the same piece. So the robot should be aware of the human at any time. It should avoid it through, and so the trajectories can avoid the human. The robot should be able to analyze the scene visually with cameras because we have a dynamic environment. And we also have a logistics sub-use case that involves an AGV that comes into the work cell and leaves new PCBs for assembly. And finally, one of the most challenging use cases, the riveting of a big aerospace structure. So imagine that this structure has a lot of holes that need to be bolted together. So we require a big workspace, and we have a manipulator on top of an AGV in order to do mobile manipulation. Here we want also to reduce the effort because currently these operations are performed manually and they involve highly non-ergonomic postures for the operators. Of course, you will see that the robot should counteract the forces from the human in order to perform the riveting. I will go into more detail from the work that we have performed in Aristotle University in Thessaloniki regarding this project. So here in the Automation and Robotics Lab, that is led by Professor Zoe Vlieri, who is the coordinator of this project, we are focusing on the teaching of the task with kinesthetic guidance and also the reproduction of the task with adaptive control. About the teaching, we encode the demonstrations with movement primitives. We have developed new methods, and we want to allow interventions of the human in order to make modifications if the human wants to, let's say, demonstrate something differently. On the reproduction, we want the robot to predict where the human wants to go, predict the intentions, share the load between the human and the robot, and also make modifications to the tasks by simply applying forces to the robot. And I have some videos later to explain. So how exactly can we teach a robot with kinesthetic guidance? Some of the speakers gave some examples earlier. So this is how a simple kinesthetic guidance looks like. A human grabs the robot and demonstrates a pick and place task. And instead of simply recording the path, we encode it with movement primitives. And this gives us some benefits on generalizing to new targets, for example, and very easily switching the velocity of the execution. So during the demonstration, the human simply demonstrates the task to the robot, but we also want the robot to provide feedback to the operator of what it has learned, because maybe the human made a mistake and want to see if the robot is able to capture this task appropriately. So we have developed a method of virtual fixtures, which means that after you demonstrate a trajectory to the robot, you can very easily go through it again by forming a virtual tube around this trajectory. And you will see here a comparison on top of our method, where a human wants to see if the robot has learned the task correctly. And here he makes a new adjustment. And below we have a simple gravity compensated robot. The biggest difference here is that we highly reduce the mental load on the human, and it's very easy for the human to perform this task. And of course, he can do it in very short time. You will see here that he completes this task in 22 seconds, but with current methods, it takes around 36 to 37. Another method that I mentioned earlier is about goal prediction during object transfer. So we want to assist a human by the robot becoming proactively by predicting the target pose and the speed of execution during a co-manipulation of a big object, for example. And by doing that, we see that we can minimize the effort that is required by the human in order to move this goal. So this method is separated in two phases. First, we have a training phase where we demonstrate the trajectory, and then the robot is able to generalize and execute to a new pose. So here's a video of where the human is collaborating with the robot to object and transfer. This is a small laboratory mock-up. And in order to explain what's going on here, I would like to pay attention to this graph. You will see here that the red dashed line is the actual target. The green line is what the robot did. And the blue line is what the robot estimated. So quite fast, the robot estimates roughly, but this is very helpful where the human wants to go. And this translates into less effort by the human. This is a mock-up of the use case. So we have a big glass that weighs around 3 kilograms. It's very easy for the human to manipulate this with a robot. The robot is proactive, and we can perform some kind of, let's say, assembly by placing these markers. And you will see here that we have a different control scheme that the robot does not move when the forces of assembly are applied. Okay, so another thing that I'd like to discuss is how we can combine robot compliance with tracking accuracy. So as you might know, in the industry, the robots, when they work autonomously, they are stiff because we want for them to accurately track the trajectory and go with very good accuracy to the target. But for safe human-robot collaboration, we would like the robots to be compliant for safety reasons. So can we combine both of them? Because there's a trade-off between accuracy and safety. So we have developed a method that achieves that. And you will see here in this video that we have commanded the robot to go to a target, and the robot can react to external forces by the operator. It can pause, and then it can continue to reach the target with great accuracy. So you see that the robot, there's an obstacle on the trajectory of the robot. The robot comes into contact with the operator. It is compliant. And when the human goes away, the robot continues executing the task with accuracy to the target. And finally, this is a method of how you can easily program a task to the robot that is repetitive. So this notion of progressive automation actually starts with the robot full compliant, with the robot being in gravity compensation, and with the operator demonstrating the task a couple of times. So in each demonstration, the robot progressively increases the active assistance to the operator. And hopefully, after a few demonstrations, the human can stop interacting with the robot, and the robot can continue executing the task autonomously. Here's a video of what I'm talking about. We'll see here that the human wants to demonstrate a simple pick and place task. So he simply grabs the robot is passive, and demonstrates the task a couple of times. So this is, although it's a repetitive task, it has discrete segments. And you will see here that the third demonstration, the robot has identified what the human wants to do and continues executing the task autonomously. This method can also work for periodic tasks that don't have segments. For example, this Y-pick movement. You see here that the human is demonstrating a circular path, and after a few demonstrations, the robot detects the task and switches gradually into an autonomous operation. What is important here to see that is that very easily the human can simply grasp the robot again and make adjustments from this circular path into something that reminds the figure 8, as you can see here on top. Again, after a few demonstrations, the robot can transition into autonomous operation. And one of the most recent advances is that having demonstrated this periodic motion, the robot can very easily adapt to changes of the environment. So you see here that if we simply rotate the plane, we don't need to redemonstrate the task. The robot adapts because of the force sensors and the position signal, and can also adapt during gradual transitions. Okay, so it all comes down to an example integration video that it is first draft that we have performed in our lab. It's about the TZV assembly use case. So here the objective is to place those two PCBs on the TV. Currently, this operation in the factory is performed by 2 humans, one for placing the PCB and another for screwing. So here you will see the teaching by demonstration phase. The guy on the left holds a tablet in order to command the discrete steps, and the guy on the left performs the demonstration. You will see here that this task requires a good amount of accuracy in order to place the PCB exactly on these holes. And after the first PCB is demonstrated, we can repeat the same process for the second one. Don't pay attention to the gripper. It's just an example gripper that we have developed in our lab just for some experiments. We will use an industrial one. Here you will see that we place the second PCB, and this completes the demonstration phase. So the next phase for this use case is to see if the robot has learned exactly what the human wanted. So we go to the inspection phase. And this phase, you see that very easily the human can see if the robot has learned the task. You'll see here he makes a modification because maybe the robot didn't learn exactly the location and position. And after the inspection is completed, you can go to the execution. So at the end of this table, you can consider that we have a conveyor belt. And because we have a dynamic environment, we have a camera that detects the new TV and also tracks the human that performs the screen operation. So now the robot is fully autonomous. It detects the PCB, the first one, it goes to grasp it, and then it goes to the placing position. So we have a slow speed for at this point, but the robot can move faster, of course. You will see how the robot does a good job in the accuracy of positioning the PCB. And when the PCB is placed, the human is there to perform the screen operation. While the human screws, the robot goes for the next one. And at all times, the camera that is on top monitors the skeleton of the human so that he won't be very close to the robot. If he does that, the robot should avoid this motion, and this is shown later in the video. So the next one comes in. And after it is placed, this also one is screwed on location manually. So in fact, we have replaced the guy on the right. That should be someone who places the PCBs. So this is a collision avoidance. You will see that the robot tracks the human and avoids by reshaping dynamically the trajectory. But as a fail-safe, if anything fails, you remember that the human also is compliant. So even if there's a blind spot, the robot will not harm the human. But this compliance does not affect the tracking accuracy. So this is the first time we present this video. Hope you liked it. And this concludes the presentation. Hopefully within the next few months, since we have just started the integration, we'll have more videos and more better results to show. So stay tuned in the social media and the website. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask me.
Thank you for this. Thank you very much. This was a very nice talk. First of all, I would like to ask if anyone from the audience has any questions. You can also speak, you don't have to write. Until the thing I have, so in this sense, how do you do task allocation? How does the system decide what would be the job that the human is doing and what would be the job that the robot is doing?
Are you talking about this use case? In general, we have a task in this project that performs the task allocation. So we have a system planner. Mm-hmm. So as you understand that here the robot, the only thing that could block is to wait for the new TV to come into place. And the human waits for the robot. So it is quite straightforward here. But in some other use cases, for example, let's say the riveting use case, which is quite challenging, we have a few hundred holes to perform riveting. So here we need a system planner in order to detect the sequence and also to communicate with the human of which hole to rivet, because we are in a dynamic environment and we want the robot to adapt to the human and not the opposite. But also there's also constant communication between the two. In addition, this sequence can be, let's say, somehow programmed during the demonstration phase.
Okay, great, thanks. And how does communication take place in this scenario? Because I think that one of the main challenges, I assume, in any of these industrial settings is that there is a lot of noise, and there might be machines that are operating. So then how would you achieve communication in such a noisy, if you wish, environment?
Yes, we have done some preliminary research. We have some results, of course, with gesture recognition. So the human can signal and command the robots, both manipulator and the AGV, through gestures. For example, he can wave to the robot and for the robot to come closer. We were thinking of different types of communication, but because of the noise environment we cannot use, for example, voice commands, because it's very difficult. You require a microphone, but there are also some alternatives to use smartwatches, and let's say that will present some signal or a verification signal just for the robot to move to the next sequence. But the basic idea in this project is to use gesture recognition through RGPD cameras.
Great. And I don't know if anyone else has a question, because I have one last, but if anyone else has a question, that might be. So then the last one that I have is, so you have the system that it's monitoring the different, do you have more than one workspace? Or it would be, let's say, one workspace? Because what I'm asking is whether that system can monitor different instances in parallel of different workspaces. For example, one is doing this assembly of one specific use case, the other one is doing another assembly of another use case. Would there be any, let's say, global workspace monitorization, or if this is more local?
No, we have a global system, let's say, that oversees the multiple stations. And for example, this use case, so we can have multiple manipulators that perform assembly operations. And we also have an AGV that is performing logistic operations. So the human, for example, can, let's say we have a camera, let's say in this case that performs the PCB positioning. So if the work cell that has the PCBs runs out of PCBs, it gives a command to the global system planner, and this will command the warehouse for the robots to come in, get a new box of PCBs, and take it to this exact work cell. We also have a scenario where we also have multiple AGVs, and if someone fails for some reason, breaks down, it sends a command and the new one comes in. Okay. Or if the work cell doesn't get the PCBs on time, it seems that maybe one AGV has broken and couldn't send a command, so we need another AGV so that the process doesn't stop.
All right, great. That's also a very nice project. If there are no more questions, I would like to thank you for this. Thank you very much for this great talk. And then we go to our last speaker for today, which is Matteo Gianarolli from Data Logic, and he's going to present to us the Rossini project. So we can see your screen. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Can you see it?
Yes, yes, perfect.
Okay, perfect. So first of all, I want to...
I would suggest that you have the full screen and not the presenters.
I put it on full screen. Maybe I can try again.
Because we have the, yeah. Well, it's okay. It doesn't matter. It's fine. Thank you.
Okay, so I don't know actually what is happening. Maybe I can change. I have two screens, so maybe this is the issue that is causing this. But if you can see it, I would like to, okay.
Yes,
so first of all, I want to thank you all for the opportunity to be here. I'm Matteo Gianarolli, and I'm a fundraising manager at Data Logic. Data Logic is a company that is designing and producing barcode readers, mobile computers, and sensor and vision system. Datalogic is currently the coordinator of Project Rossini. Project Rossini is a funded project that started in 2018, and it's obviously in the field of human-robot collaboration. This project, so you are basically in the middle of the project, so we will be seeing some of the steps that we already made in the last months. So to achieve our main goal. The main goal of the project is to develop a disruptive software and hardware platform for the design and deployment of human-robot collaboration application in the field of manufacturing. As we will be seeing during the presentation, all our use cases are related to manufacturing aspects. The goal, the vision that we have in Rossini project is to overcome a paradigm. So basically now we do have a conflict between safety and efficiency. On one side, we do have traditional robots that, as we all know, are very fast and efficient on one side, but unsafe and very often caged and or stopped while working due to the fact that they are not safe for the operator. On the other side, we do have cobots that are safe, but on the other side, they are very slow and less efficient. With Rossini project, as we will see, we are trying to overcome this conflict, and we are willing to develop a system and a platform that will allow us to do so. From the very, very beginning, we understood that we were not in the position to do it by working in one or two or three entities. Therefore, we were in the situation in which we were forced to put together different entities, different background and point of views in order to create something that was really, really challenging in this specific field. We put together very reputable universities and research centers like TNO, Unimore, and Fraunhofer, and SUPSI, for example, but on the other side, we tried to give a very strong industry point of view, and this is testified by the fact that, for example, Datalogic is coordinator of a project that is ERIA. This is pretty uncommon in ERIA project. We do have PILT, for example, and Iris and IMA working as a developer of technology on one side and integrator on the other one. All the technologies that are developed in the project, as we will see, are used in 3 different use cases that are pretty different among each other, that are developed in IMA, Whirlpool, and Shinza. From the very beginning, as said, we understood that we were forced to put together very different capabilities and knowledge. We understood that we were not in the position to work only on the sensing side, for example, but we had to put together different experiences and knowledge. I will walk through the different part of the system and the platform that we are developing in order to allow you to understand the different part of the system and what we are developing in each layer of this system that we are creating. The first one, for sure, is the more obvious, is the sensing layer. In this specific layer, we will be combining a set of sensors that are based on different technologies, but able on the other side to work together, delivering full information of the area that we are monitoring. In here, we are putting together different, the signal coming from different sensors. We will put together signals from 3D cameras, state laser scanner, radar, and also something coming from the skin that we're putting on the operator. This is maybe the kind of layer that we are expecting in this kind of application. We are adding multiple layers, allowing us to reach the very forward-looking goals that we do have in this project. Through the using the perception layer, we will be deploying AI techniques. We will be generating in here a semantic scene map, integrating on one side the geometric and on the other one the semantic information. This will allow us to turn in creating a set of virtual dynamic shells for safety surrounding each object. This is the key of this layer. We are creating shells that are dynamic and not static. We will be working also on the cognitive layer. In here, the main goal of this layer is the task modeling and design of the scheduler. As also in other projects are doing something that is similar and working on a scheduler. In here, we are working on a high-level plan for the robot that is coming out in a set of cooperative actions. So basically, we are dynamically planning a set of actions that the robot needs to execute and to update according to the environment condition. So basically, the planning is changing according to what is happening around the robot. The controlling layer is very important. In here, basically, we are interpreting the high-level action to execute. And this layer will generate the most efficient and safety-preserving low-level plan for the robot. So basically, in here, the goal is to optimize the trade-off between the safety and the productivity in the work cell. In Rossini project, we are making all the analysis related to the safety, the strict safety actions and tasks in the sensing layer. With the perception, cognitive, and controlling layer, we are doing other activities that will allow us to optimize the trade-off between safety and productivity. So hopefully the sensing layer is acting only in the case in which there is the real risk of a contact between the operator and the robot. Apart from that, we will be working on something very, very innovative that is related to the actuation layer. It will encompass a novel concept of manipulators with built-in safety features. This will allow us to reduce the separation distance between the man and the operator while collaborating. So in here, we will be developing a new robotic arm that will be deployed in at least one of the final use cases. Another very important layer in part of the system is the human layer. One of the main challenge in this specific field is the lack of workforce acceptance in human-robot collaboration application. Through this layer, we will ensure the inclusion of human-related factors from the early design phases of collaborative applications design. And apart from that, we will ensure the inclusion of the constant monitoring of factors that are influencing the job quality. This is very important if we think at what we can consider sustainable on one side and what is really critical for operators that are forced to work together with robots and sharing the space with them. The integration layer is basically the last part of the project. It's a set of tools and guidelines to ensure a safety in design of different applications. What we're trying to do is to create a platform that we can use in multiple applications. In order to do so, we have to keep in mind what is related to tools and guidelines to do it in a very quick way and in a way that we can easily adapt in case of changes of the environment or of the different production of goods from the companies that are using the platform. As said, Rossini layers will be integrated into one safe platform for different applications. While looking at use cases, our goal was to find the use cases that were very different among each other. We wanted to test the Rossini platform and Rossini solution in a very, very different environments. I'm sorry, the first one is the Whirlpool use case. In this case, we have a specific environment that is related to the assembly of domestic appliances. In the Whirlpool use case, Rossini will deploy the adaptive features of the human layer on one side and the safety-aware control architecture on the other one. In here, one of the main challenges is related to the working speed. So basically, in this specific use case, we are managing what is allowing Whirlpool to put a weight under the washing machine in order to avoid vibration. In this specific situation, we have a flow line that is working with heavy products at a high speed. Therefore, we have to slightly change the paradigm in order to allow the robot to manage this very heavy product to be put underneath the washing machine, but in a safe way for the operator. Everything so far is done manually, or some specific tasks are done by caged robot. So the tentative that we are doing it, and the goal that we have in here, is to create a system with no cage in which the operator is working together and collaborating with the robot. The second use case, as you can see, is very, very different. In here, it's the use case is in IMA. IMA it's a company that is building different machines for packaging. This specific use case is related to tea packing machine platforms. So in here, the driver for the company is that there is a higher sensitivity for job quality, efficiency, and flexibility by its clients. Therefore, they are trying to change the current situation. In the IMA use case, Rossini will deploy a medium payload manipulator. As you can see, so also the kind of manipulator that we're using and the weight that we are carrying is completely different. And the manipulator is mounted on an AGV. So the human layer and the control architecture will be confronted with the challenge to manage navigation operations as well as other operations. If we think the main challenge in here is not related to something that is moving very fast or carrying something very heavy, like in the previous use case, but is related to managing indoor navigation and the interactions between the robot arms and the operators. The third use case is again in a manufacturing field. It's in Schindler, and in here is related to electronic components and production. In this third use case, the main challenge that we are facing is related to the fact that in Schindler use case, there is a high production variability. In here, we have the operator that is collaborating together with the robot. Initially, the robot will be a commercial one. After, during the project, will be switched with a robot arm that is developed in Rossini and that will be developed by Subsi. In here, the operator is working with the robot in order to create the push button that you can see in every elevator. In the Schindler use case, Rossini will demonstrate the feature of the collaborative by birth robotic manipulator developed by Subsi, delivering a low payload robotic arm for electronic components production. In here, we are forced also to integrate with the other platform components, such as a sensing system on one side and a controller on the other one. As said, in here, the main challenge is related to the variability. that is another thing that we have to keep in mind while creating this kind of platform. If you want to see the development that we are making, we made and we will be making on the Rossini project, you can follow us on our website or through our LinkedIn and Twitter channel. We will be posting in the next months videos of the different use case and of the technologies that we have developed under each of the layer that I presented you during the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for this interesting talk. First of all, I would like to ask the audience if they have specific questions that they would like to pose. I have a question, which is related to safety and more specifically to perceived safety. So what is the, first of all, what are the approaches that you use in order to have safe collaborative schemes?
Okay. This is something that is under development and is currently developed by PILT. Mm-hmm. Is something that they are developing in order to complete the kind of sensor that we can attach to the sensing layer. This is the last part that will be developed within the sensing layer. So they are starting now the activities. So we do not have anything huge to present. Now we are focusing more related to the sensing layer on the 3D cameras, SLS, and the radar that are currently more impacting the project in terms of direct impact related to the demonstrator.
Yes, of course, first you need to ensure the sensors before you go.
Yeah.
You want to understandable way, of course. Any other questions in the meantime before I ask another question? Okay, and then in terms of manipulation, how accurate is manipulation in terms, because of course these robots as well will have to manipulate and grasp objects, etc. So how have you had any outcomes from this project already regarding manipulation and accuracy?
Yes, if we look at manipulators, we are currently developing the first part of the project in relation to manipulators that we can already find in the market. So for a couple of the use cases, we are working with commercial manipulators. One is from FANUC, the other one is from UR, because we are building the work cells and the environment in which we are developing all the sensing features that are fundamental. So on the other one, it's under development, as said, a manipulator that is developed by Subsi. What is pretty unique in here is that, and also for Project Rossini in general, the majority of the sensing part is put outside of the manipulator. And they're working in here on something very, very innovative related to the joints. Mm-hmm. So basically what happens very, very often is that while working with manipulator, you have the manipulator that is stopping in a position that is not safe for the operator, or it's not the best stopping position that you can find in order to check the safety for the operator, because maybe the manipulator is carrying something through which he can damage the operator that is moving through this object, and if there is a stop, it's an issue. In here, we are trying to work on motor joints in order to change the trajectory of the manipulator and of the robot arm in order to create a situation that is not harmful for the operator.
Perfect.
So, okay.
Thank you very much. So now, if you all agree, we can continue with the discussion instead of taking this half an hour of a break, 25 minutes of break, so that then we can finish slightly earlier the workshop. I don't know if you all agree to this. Also now, since it's going to be a free discussion, you don't need to write on the chat or send messages, but you can actually use a microphone and talk. If you're okay with moving forward with a discussion, what I would like to first do is have a little bit of a small recap of these two previous sessions, because for me personally they were quite interesting. So we had 4 different projects. We've had HR Recycler, we had Sharework, Collaborate, and Rossini. Unfortunately, Nestor had to leave, so he will not be part of the discussion for this specific session because he had an urgent meeting. So all of these projects, and in general, they have the specific, let's say, common features and also common challenges. And there, of course, please feel free to interrupt me and also feel free to add in this discussion. The way that I see it is that we have this session was dedicated in an industrial setting where humans are in shared workspaces with robots. And whether that's assembly or disassembly, the challenges that have been the challenges that have been stated in these different projects seem to be common in specific ways. For example, we do have one of the most important common challenges and let's say features that we need to provide these robots is safety. Safety, because humans will be, in all of the examples that we have seen, either from simulations or from real examples, we have seen that humans will be in close proximity with robots and with no specific fence or protection. So therefore, one of the main challenges there is to design and create inherently safe robotic systems that through various approaches, of course, would ensure that any kind of interaction, whether that's physical or in close proximity, would be safe for the human. Another approach there, when we're talking about safety, I would say is the perceived safety, because one issue is having the robots being safe, and the other is whether the worker feels safe in this environment. So one question after this recap would be whether in the different projects, and I would like your input to that, whether you have planned any studies or you already made any studies on whether workers evaluate this interaction in terms of perceived safety, so how safe they are. The next, I would say, challenge there is that we are talking about highly dynamic environments, and therefore adaptability is an important factor. And of course, just to finish one thing before, in safety, one of the challenges that has been recurrent is all of these different trade-offs between performance, accuracy, and safe operation. And now, talking about this highly dynamic environments, an important factor there is adaptability. And that would include not only in terms of sensing and manipulating the different objects, which of course, these objects may vary in weight, in dimensions, in shape, and everything, but also the fact that these robots have to deal with different users. So another part that I would find there quite interesting is adaptability to the different workers, because I assume that not all workers are the same, not all workers have the same preferences. So another question, open question there would be, how would the different projects deal with this adaptability in terms of manipulation of the different objects, as well as the human factors and the workers. Then again, we have human-robot collaboration, and there the different projects have different approaches in how collaboration is achieved. However, another interesting question there would be whether there has been any evaluation on how workers perceive the collaboration between them and the robots. And finally, we have these challenges of sensation and perception, because of course we are talking about different objects, different devices with different shapes. So we do need systems that are highly accurate in perceiving and reading their environment. And we also have computer vision, smart mechatronics, the allocation of different tasks, because of course there might be cases of failure or error or idle time. So high level systems should be able to account for such idle times or for these failures. Proactivity has been also another let's say feature that has been mentioned. Of course, when we talk about human-robot collaboration and human-robot interaction, communication is another key component where it could, because of these noisy environments, it's impossible to use speech or these natural communication channels that humans use. So therefore, there we have to go into different aspects such as gestures or even the use of technology like smartwatches or even tablets. And one other aspect that I don't think has been discussed, but it's also interesting in adding in the discussion, is ethics, the ethical component and how these different projects deal with ethics. So this has been my, let's say, small recap of all of these presentations so far. And now I would like to invite the people who have presented from the different projects on how would they deal with these specific challenges. For example, whether there have been any studies or you plan to do any studies that would evaluate, for example, how workers perceive safety or collaboration, how do you deal with ethics, and how do you evaluate the overall hybrid performance of the system. And of course, please feel free to add any of the challenges that I may have neglected or forgotten. So,
Vasiliki, may I comment on this?
Yes, please.
Okay, so you mentioned some really good points and discussing about safety, adaptability, workers' evaluation, and ethics. These are some questions that we're very interested in collaborate, and they're not very easy to answer.
Exactly.
So regarding safety, there's also the key of the point of acceptability of the human workers of the current technologies. So how can we measure if a technology that we will include, let's say, that would be the outcome of our projects will be acceptable for the human? And we are trying to find some ways to measure it. There are, for example, some questionnaires.
Mm-hmm.
And our idea is to provide them to the workers before we intervene to their use cases. So we will ask them how you perform these operations that might be manual right now. And after we introduce our technology to the factory, we would like to provide them the same questions and see if there's any difference. So this is one of our ways to see if there's acceptability. Another point is how we can measure the overall performance of a technology that we introduce to the factory. Okay, there are some key performance indicators, the so-known KPIs, but we might need to consider some new KPIs, some novel KPIs, because if we introduce a technology with a robot that is adaptable and flexible and so on, it might not necessarily be faster than a human. and it most possible will not be faster than a human, but it will have some other benefits. One of the use cases, for example, we're considering Collaborate is the riveting operation. I don't think that the robot will be able to perform a riveting operation faster than 2 humans are doing it right now. But so we need to consider, maybe I would like to invite all the other projects, the sister projects that participate in this workshop to brainstorm on new KPIs and how to measure human-robot collaboration, the introduction of new technologies. And one of the KPIs can be the ergonomics, the improvement of ergonomics in these use cases. Because standard KPIs is the speed of execution that are currently are in consideration in the industry, they might not be enough to prove that these new human-robot collaboration technologies actually have a benefit. So these are my points I wanted to discuss. And if someone has any ideas of new KPIs, we can share them all together, and why not compare them?
That's a great point. Okay.
Matteo Zanaroli from Rossini. I completely agree with what said. What I can add is that we do have a specific work package related to the design, definition of the questionnaire, so to track how the people working together with the robot are perceiving the robot and the environment with the robot inside. We will be publishing a paper in regards to this, or if you want, we can share additional information. It's an activity made by TNO. What is really interesting also in this kind of project is to see how multiple and different knowledges are needed. It's not only related to being able to do something related to mechatronics, it's something more. And we have to keep in mind this. What I can add is that we are facing a challenge also in this. We have seen it in one of the use cases. Our partner is making and producing machines that are sold to third parties. So basically the user end of the work cell is someone outside the company. So it's very difficult to have access to the people that are currently really using the machine and collaborating with the robot, because the information is not collectible within the partners that are, for example, in a specific project like this, but they are out. So an important thing is also, in my opinion, the access to the information and understanding if we are able to show to the customer that giving us this data, it's also important for them, and helping the people currently really using the system while doing their activities.
That's a good point. And just to add to this one, access to information and data sharing actually requires specific approaches regarding privacy and ensuring that this information will not be used, for example, and this is also a bit relevant to the ethics, where any kind of recording of the different sessions within the humans and the workers, the workers and the robots, in order to evaluate the system or evaluate the collaboration, in order to provide also input for the various partners that need this analysis to develop their own systems, would not be used in order to evaluate, for example, the performance of the worker within the company, and they will not be used for any other purposes than purely scientific. So that's also part of ethics, and this privacy is just because this was a very nice point and this reminded me of that. But just to add to the KPIs, I think this is a highly important point, because of course right now this is a human-robot collaboration, especially in industrial settings, is a hot topic, if you wish. It's a topic that it's important. It's now it's getting a lot more traction, and it's fairly new in the sense that now we also have the technology and mature systems that we can actually feel comfortable in placing a robot next to the human. So of course, whatever was existing KPIs might not 100% cover now these new approaches where humans are there and they are actively collaborating and they're actively even possibly forming some sort of relation within brackets of with these robots. So I think that yes, these human factors, these ergonomics should be part of these KPIs, these new KPIs, and that's definitely something worth brainstorming either in this session or in any other future session that we can arrange between these projects in order to reach possibly some common solutions in terms of how do we evaluate in a systematic way, but of course in an accurate way, these dynamic systems and how they would work with the humans. I don't know if anyone has any contribution to this specific.
Okay, Vicky, Apostolos again.
Hello, Apostolos.
Okay, so I also agree with what has been told by our colleagues in the other projects, and from the HR Cycler project also part with respect to KPIs, it is still through what Fotis mentioned before, that we cannot expect that the speed in tasks like disassembling taken by a robot, undertaken by a robot, could be so fast as a human can do. But we should also see that this aspect in a different way. For example, how to avoid some hazardous manipulation, and this can be done by a robot. So this is how to reduce the risk in this assembly process. Or also in terms of the effectiveness, we have also discussed the possibility for a human to perform in parallel different assembly procedures. So being in one person in two workbenches and handling, for example, two robots doing two parallel processes. So this is something that could also help in improving the performance in a factory. Moreover, with respect to how humans perceive this introduction of robots, of course, questionnaires is a solution that can be valid for several cases. I would like to add here also an approach. You know, Vicky, of course, you're also part of this activity. Just for all people to know, in HR Cycler, we have also arranged a set of experiments where human workers are undertaking some tasks in a virtual environment. So we benefit from virtual and augmented reality, and put the workers in a virtual environment depicting the factory with the robots inside. So we can directly measure some how, if they are stressed or if they're relaxed based on coexisting with robots in specific activities. So this is something still ongoing, but we hope that it will give some good examples and to be used as also as a baseline for some experiments in the future. So that's all from my side.
I have a question in regards to this. How do you handle the information? Where do you keep and track and store the information? And are you able to understand who is the operator working in a specific cell, for example? I think so, because you're tracking some information. So how did you deal with this with the GDPR, for example?
So you mean the last one about the measuring?
About tracking information related to the operator, about how he feels, and so.
It is not. It is. These experiments are done with the consent of the workers. It's not being indirectly. It is done specifically for this purpose. So they go to a specific place. It's not in the real workspace of an industry. As I said, we benefit from virtual reality. So actually the worker is has given the consent to participate in such experiment, and they get into a virtual environment which depicts the space of a factory and performing some specific actions of this assembly. Yes?
Yes, Dimitri?
Yes, I just wanted to add in this respect that this is exactly the case for the experiments, and if we consider, if we extend this a bit and consider the overall operation of the system, of course, in the future there should be specific measures taken in order to ensure data privacy wherever this is necessary. And for instance, there could be, if we consider a centralized system where information related to workers reside, of course, there should be encryption mechanisms and mechanisms to ensure data integrity and privacy, but also there could be cases of handling the data under anonymization. For instance, there could be tags or RFIDs that provide information in relation to some user ID, and then this information gets stored in the server of the system. In order also, in case of an attack or something like that, private information to not go out together with names or something like that. So there could be lots of measures that can be taken in this direction, and of course, we are also considering this. But the first measure is exactly during the project implementation to have specific procedures that are applied in the experiment.
Thank you, Dimitri. And also to add on the KPIs possible, and also to what Apostolo said about ensuring safety of the humans while they're performing these actions, other possible perhaps KPIs would be, or benefits, if you wish, while we have these humans working with robots, because of course the robots are not going to perform the task faster, could be also this idea of reducing cognitive load or fatigue of these workers. So of course, less accidents or less errors happen. So that might also be one of possible ways of evaluating, again, how these benefits of this collaboration between humans and robots and the introduction of these hybrid systems.
Yes, and I think to add to that, I agree that we might not be able to do the same task with a better speed or the same speed, but I also think introducing robots might actually increase productivity overall after all, because you can free up some time maybe from the human worker, right, who only has to look at the robot sometime and help with the task, do small things, start a new procedure, change something, and then let the robot go do his job for another half an hour, and he is free to do other tasks. So yeah, well, I agree. If you purely measure speed from doing one single task, it might not be that beneficial. Maybe KPIs could look more at overall productivity of the whole system or workforce.
Nice, thank you.
Hi, this is Yanis Hadjikonstantinou from CERT. With respect to what Sebastian just mentioned, this is very important, as in fact one strategy that we are adopting in the HR Recycler project, where the overall aim in the factory floor is to have workers have a more supervisory role, where they are assigned to multiple workstations and are able to, on one side, supervise whether the tasks are being performed correctly, and also help from time to time in tasks that potentially could not be achieved by the robots on the workstations. So that's definitely, I think, a good perspective for considering human-robot collaboration in the industry.
Mm. Within this field, do you have anything else to add, Matteo or Toti?
No, I have nothing to add. Thank you.
We had a good discussion.
Great. I don't know if there is, within these different challenges, anything else you would like to talk about or discuss, because I mean, there are, of course, we really wanted, we could talk for hours because there are too many and too interesting talks and subjects there. But another, well, first, let me see if you have any other points you would like to discuss. So then, just to close this discussion, then I would like to invite you to share how would you see this industry 4.0 or this industry where how would you envision, either through this project or even on a personal level, this introduction of these hybrid systems, or what would be this ideal setup?
I think the people who could answer adequately this question, because it's a very difficult question, are the ones from the industry inside who could who can identify, who know what are the problems are and what they envision ways to solve them. I mean, from the technical side, we can only offer solutions, but in the overall, I'm not sure how.
But you do
sorry?
But you do take into consideration, I mean, both projects, I mean, also HR Recycler work with end users, correct?
Yes.
So in that sense, all of the use cases that you have developed are with collaboration with the end users, right?
Yes, yes. I mean, we know the needs, but I think one of the biggest problem that they need to solve right now is manual operations that require a lot of cognitive loads and a lot of non-ergonomic postures. I think that from the human perspective, from the worker perspective, these are the most important problems that need to be solved, because currently the robots don't have the flexibility to perform them.
Yeah, I think that in general, and this is not only in the industry, but in general, the reduction of cognitive load is something that is on how robots can actually help and contribute in any task that is performed by humans. The reduction of cognitive load is, I would say, one of the key points. And of course, fatigue and posture, possibly even reminding workers to take a break, or reminding workers to fix their posture or ergonomics in case of detection of possible harm in the long run. Yes, that's actually
exactly.
Well,
personally, oh, I'm sorry.
Yes.
Well, personally, I think that all the projects are going in the right direction. if I'm thinking at Industry 4.0. Basically, in every project, you can see a set of high-performance safety sensors, for example, that will guarantee to the robot the best working area detection, and on the other side, to the operator, the best safety levels that you can guarantee. And in general, you're seeing a lot of AI-based algorithms. I think in several of the projects that we did see today, that I think, in my opinion, we leverage on the acquired data to optimize the efficiency of the robot, and very often to dynamically adapt it to the operator. So there are a lot of keywords that are the same for all the projects that we can see while talking about Industry 4.0. In general, a lot of the actions that we are taking are related to the job quality parameters that will be used in multiple phases of the design of the cell, and also while working in the cell itself. So I think that there are multiple things that will allow all of us to increase the job quality, to have more production flexibility and productivity. That will be the key if we want to take back some activities. If we think Europe, for example, we have to contribute to keep the production facilities and employment in areas with the labor cost maybe is higher than in other areas. And this will, all these actions, I think, that are in this direction also.
Yes. But then how could you keep this interaction between the different projects so that then all projects could benefit from these outcomes?
Yes, not only the project, but Europe in general, I think, and us as a citizen.
Of course, because the idea of each of these projects is to improve the quality of life or improve the quality of work of the workers, or improve the industry in order of both performance and as well safe operation, and as well fatigue, or the situation of the workers.
I'm sorry, I didn't get the question due to the some issue.
How would then
okay, if you see, a lot of the steps are made so to have high flexibility, for example, of the different platforms. And this is due to different techniques that we're using, especially in these projects, that were not used in the past. So having high flexibility of a platform, for example, will contribute to shorten reconfiguration times and take down the cost in case of product changes. So this is key on one side. On the other one, we have higher flexibility for sure due to this. And we are increasing the job quality with a lot of the different projects. On one side, analyzing what is happening and making questionnaire, for example, like in Rossini, and trying to understand how the robot is perceived by the operator. On the other side, we are working in order to check some parameters and so to understand better the condition for the operator. And I think that another key is that we are thinking from the very beginning at the condition of the worker. So this is something that is not coming during the project, or at what you think at the end of a specific project or application. It's something that you have in mind from the very beginning, and this is key.
Yeah.
I do not have nothing to add.
Thank you, Matteo. I don't know if anyone else has something else to propose, to add. So if there's nothing else to add, I would like to thank all of the speakers today. Thank you, first of all, for attending this workshop. It was a very nice workshop. Thank you for all of the speakers for presenting their work, their very interesting work. I think the outcome of this workshop has stemmed some quite interesting questions and has highlighted challenges that are common across different projects and across these interdisciplinary domains, especially for the industry. So with that, I don't know if anyone else would like to add something else. I would like to conclude the workshop. And thank you all very, very much for attending.
I would like to thank you, Vicky and Ibek, for organizing this workshop and hosting in the context of Living Machines Conference. I wish you good luck to the next days of the conference, and thank you everyone for being here, for attending the workshop. And I wish that situation will be better in the future so that we can meet face to face and exchange also new ideas for the projects and have common.
That would be great indeed.
Hello, this is also Anamura from EBAC. And so I also wanted to thank all the speakers for agreeing to participate in this workshop. This is a legacy also from Living Machines that now is at its 9th edition. So we'll be happy, and we've been happy to organize this workshop in collaboration with HI Recycler. And thank you very much for your contribution. And we hope to see you tomorrow at the conference, where more discussion, more relevant papers will be presented. And we will have wonderful plenary talks as well. So thank you all.
Have a nice day and stay safe.
Thank you
for
very much.
inviting us.
Bye. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.